One of the things I think I love about wine is the liquid in there used to be a grape, the glass used to be sand, the cork used to be the bark of a tree. There is something so harmonious about that. What we're talking about is terroir, the sense of place at a very deep level. When you think of all of the different things that go into a bottle, even the packaging of them, I always go back to harmony, the sustainability, the beauty of everything about this thing you recycle. When you are eating foods from a region and you drink a wine from that region, there is a harmony.
Sit back and grab a glass. It's Wine Talks with Paul K.
Hey, welcome to Wine Talks with Paul K. And we are at a away game today up in Los Olivos, so we have to have a conversation. A second conversation with Keith. And we're just discussing how to say the name because it's like Callum Carrion, just say it whatever way you want, but it's Saarloos, owner of the Saarloos and Sons wine company. And you may have heard one episode, the longest episode in Wine Talks history last time because we have a lot to talk about. But he has a podcast now. What do you call it?
Saarloos and Sons, An Idiot's Guide to Wine.
An Idiot's Guide to Wine. So this is Keith Saarloos, if you haven't figured that out already. And this is a family business. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about sustainability in business, like making skateboards from, barrel staves. Hey, give me a review. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it. But otherwise, it always helps us podcasters when we get positive reviews that are current. And listen to the previous episode with Keith because we got into the weeds and it was pretty informative about what really motivates us in this industry and why we do this. We're going to talk about that today as well. There's another episode too with my father, since we're going to talk about family today.
Yeah.
And my father, before he passed, I had a chance, it must reluctantly by him to sit down with me in front of a microphone. But man, once I turned that thing on, he was just gushing.
Yep.
It was great. So anyway, welcome to the show again.
It's amazing to be here. It's funny you bring that up, talking to your dad. My mom, I was just trying to, test mics and figure out how to do. I mean, I'm in episode 3 on this thing.
Beautiful.
And I was like, hey, let's record one. I just want to see if we can do this in a room or whatever. And I'm going to school right now on you. So she sat there and we just started talking and it was an hour and a half later. And it was great.
And that's what it should be.
It should be. And it was super fun because I never got to sit down with my dad and do this. And now it's, one of the great regrets.
So let's talk about that for a second. Since podcasting is part of sort of the marketing trend, and I don't think people understand that it's really a commitment, right?
Yeah.
I mean, all these things are commitments.
Yep.
I think in the early days of social networking, Facebook, Instagram, everybody's like, oh, start on Facebook, you'll make $1 million. And that wasn't the case. It still isn't the case. But once you stop, the whole thing stops.
Yeah.
So, but when you start, you get traction and people will listen and you have a great demeanor by yourself.
Oh, thank you.
And you're able to explain yourself and articulate that I think people are going to want to listen. Why?
Wow.
You already discussed what happens with most wine shows.
This is praise from Caesar.
Well,
you're the
well, that's right.
You're the pro of this thing, and I'm just trying to get my feet. So,
but you said you listen to these wine shows. You can only listen to them for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Why?
Usually, listening 10 minutes in, it's way too inside baseball, right?
Right, exactly.
And if you're making I'm not making a podcast for people who are in the wine industry. Like I don't really consider ourselves in the wine industry, right? I want to make it for people who are interested in what we're doing, because I do think there's a certain amount of like TV shows that I like to watch or podcasts I like to listen to. One of my, my 5 favorite words in the world, and you hopefully don't get an explicit tag for this, but is holy shit, check this out. Right? Like just yesterday, they're my 5 favorite words. Yeah. I love them. And we get less and less of those now. And I had a friend even yesterday, his name's Aiden. He went to school with my daughter and he's a concert cellist, right? This kid's talented out the ears, and he spearfishes. And so yesterday he's like, hey, I spearfished right off the coast here. I got a yellowtail. Take a look. And I was like, oh my gosh. He's like, do you want some? I go, my wife, he goes, I'm making sashimi right now. Come on over. And so I went straight over to his house. He cut it all up, sitting there, and check this out, right?
Holy shit, check this out.
Holy shit, check this out. I love it. And so with wine, I like anybody who's into something all the way, but they're into it all the way for their own reasons.
Yes.
And I have no desire to be loved in the wine industry. Zero. Like I couldn't care less. But I do desire for people who just walk in off the street, who maybe wine is like, I never grew up with a bottle on our table at dinner ever in my life. We got into this because of failures, and I wanted to be that person for anybody walking in and off the street. Maybe they've never been exposed to wine. Maybe they don't know enough about it to make any decisions, or kind of say like, I don't know enough to like it, which I think is the biggest fallacy in the world. And I want to make it comfortable for someone to walk in and they feel welcome and hugged. Like if somebody turns you on to music and you just start throwing record on after record on after record on, and you envelop people into the club. That's kind of what we've always wanted to be, because I think
you're defining this. There's really, the more I get into this, it's only taken me 35 years to come to this realization. Because I was business about wine. When I took it over, look, I had come from a small software company, prior to that, corporate America, and so this was business. And it took a little while then when what you're doing set in to the idea of what wine really is and what its value is to our soul when it comes down to it.
Yep.
And that's hard to keep track of all the time. With all the noise that you get on Instagram, and I mean, I watched during Christmas 5 new wine clubs come online.
Yeah.
One of them no less, called Vino Cheapo.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously?
Well, but like in any culture, right? Any culture whatsoever, there's people that are we were just talking about surfing, right? I think surfing is a great example. There's, I grew up surfing. I love surfing. I like the people that surf. But then all of a sudden, all of the foam boards from Costco came in, right? And is it technically surfing? Yes. But are you part of the culture? Are you part of watching someone shape a board with their hands for you? Do you have a relationship with your shaper and know all the guys that are out there, or the girls that are out there surfing with you?
Foam in your hair.
Right. It's totally the truth.
The smell of the resin.
Right. All of that, right? I think that's an important part of that culture. Yes, you can just come in and it could be an activity for you.
Right.
But what we've seen over the last, 25 years of farming, which is definitely still where our heart and soul is, 16 years of the tasting room being open, the people who come in and you say, hey, let us show you why this is great. And Matt Kaner, who you know,
yes,
he was just here last week.
Oh, great.
And one of the things we were talking about is like Vino Cheapo, right? Okay. If we just pause there, they're selling a beverage. And that wine is not a beverage. Wine is one of the last analog things that we possibly have, that you have to open it to taste it. You have to destroy the record to listen to it, right? And as you're tasting it, there's 4 glasses in every bottle. It's meant to be shared in community. It's meant to bring people closer together. It's meant for all of us to have a shared experience. And we're tasting a year. It's a time capsule. We get to go back to a place. We get to go back to a producer. We get to go back to a year, all by pulling a cork. And when we sit down, that's the most beautiful part of wine, right? That's the part. It is the part of wine. That is the part of wine. So when I think of wine, I don't think of it as a beverage. I think about it as paintings rather than a printing press. And I will always go back to everything it took for us to get it into the bottle means something.
So that's a very important part. And this is kind of like when I was coming up to Los Olivos, I got to call Keith, because I had an inspiration the other night at a wine tasting that, when we get barraged with all these messaging, and I read an article yesterday about the UK, the wines are getting, the cheap wines are being removed from the shelf, and they're mostly talking about Treasury Wine Estates, and as you know, the company that paid $1 billion for Dow. And she said in the article that they're going to focus on high premium wines, and she included 19 crimes in this definition of premium wines. Right. And I'm thinking to myself, that's not right either. And that's the corporate America, corporate world of wine that we battle against. Well, you're here in a tasting room, bringing up the story and the history and opening a piece of history, what it is. In fact, I ordered a case of wine from Vino Cheapo. And I told a winemaker. He goes, why? You know what you're going to get.
Correct.
Right? It's never going to change. It's going to be sugared up junk.
Correct.
So my inspiration of the day, get to that point. I had lunch or dinner with the winemaker at Dominus, the Moex property. And he brought up his inspiration. I don't even want to call it the aha moment because I think that's kind of dumbs it down. He said, when I tasted that glass of wine, it made me feel like I was drinking light, that I was enlightened by what is in this bottle, is when I committed my life to this manufacturing wine so I could do the same to other people.
Correct.
Is that the way it feels?
I'll even go deeper in that. There's a difference between what's in the Louvre and what is in a Motel 6 on the wall, right? You could call both of those things art.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, Vino Cheapo is a poster printing press. They're shooting for the lowest common denominator. The fact that it's called wine is a travesty.
Right.
Right.
True.
That's not even the same game we're playing.
Yeah.
Right. To a certain extent, I think the things that make the song you heard that makes you want to pick up a guitar, the moment you stand up on a wave for the first time, the things that everyone has something in their life that they ate some food, right? And when they ate that food, they went, I need to know more about this. There's a big difference between a McDonald's hamburger that has 200 cows in it and is there to get you full than a experience of sitting down and eating with someone you love, or maybe they prepared something from someone from their heart, their grandma's recipe, right? There will never be an Oreo cookie better than grandma's recipe. And the fact that those are both called cookies are two different things. Like I always think we are in a weird time in wine, in the world of wine.
For sure.
But I also have a list of like all these major, VC based wine companies that I've outlived.
Yeah.
That's the crazy part.
Look at Vintage Wine Estates, $250 million BK. Wink, the biggest club in America, BK, because that was a Ponzi
and they deserve to fail.
That was a Ponzi scheme. I mean, really, it was a not illegitimate, but not intended Ponzi scheme. They expected to make money.
So in that same vein, what gives me hope, and I could say it in a post COVID environment, the thing that gives me hope is we have lost faith in so many institutions, right? I just think that in general.
That's true.
But the things that we are now deciding, maybe quietly, is when a McDonald's was allowed to stay open, but the mom and pop had to shut down. We all knew it. Right. There wasn't, we all know what happened.
Right.
But when people start voting with their money, like right now, we're in a tough economic time, and wine is an extravagance. I totally understand that. But on the other side of it, I do see that people are maybe not buying those 4 bottles of wine for $10 at Target, and are buying the $38 bottle of wine that means something to them. And one of the things we've done here is, like, I do a tour every Saturday at 10 a.m. It's free. Anybody who's listening to this, just shoot me a DM or go on our website, 100% free. And I go out there and I said, on a level of 1 to 10, how nerdy do you want to get? And they all say 10. And like this Saturday, it was an hour and a half in the vineyard, and it was another hour, 15 minutes here.
Ballard Canyon.
And it was, we had 50 people the week before. We had 35 people this week.
That's amazing.
There's 12-year-old kids on this tour.
Yeah.
And when they get back, I go, this is me building a longer table, not a higher fence. All those other corporations you're talking about, right? They can't do that.
They can't do that.
They can't do it. The guy whose name's on the sign is out there doing this, right?
For you, yes.
Well, I feel that is a direct, we want to vote with our money for things we want to succeed. And I think that in wine, optimism, which is, I think, the biggest throughput in what wine is liquid optimism. You are doing something today for something that someone's not going to drink for 3 years. I'm working in a field hoping it will grow, hoping it's going to make it to the bottle. Hope all the way along. And I know I'm on a rant here, but the thing I constantly go back to is we are now living in an environment where people just want to get to the next thing. They have their finger on the fast forward button. they're scrubbing, they're door dashing food to their house.
Ugh.
They're drinking. They're numbing themselves with like hard liquor and shitty, seltzers and things like that. And we have to get to the optimism of calling that other couple to come over and pulling that bottle that's glowing in your cellar and opening it that night. Because if I've learned anything in the last 4 years, I have no idea what's happening tomorrow. And I think it's the greatest travesty in the world is to die with a full cellar.
I agree with that. And, it's funny, when I sold the company.
Yeah. Congratulations, by the way.
Well, thank you.
That's amazing.
I told you, we're going to lock the doors and go home. But they bought all the stuff that I sold for $15 to $18, $25, but they bought none of my cellar, which I had collected during COVID because they were buying anything. And when you brought the comment about people buying better than quantity, it's true. And I think the article I read this morning about the UK was the same. But there's something about our industry, and I don't even like calling it our industry, our trade, really. I don't like calling it the industry because that's what turns it into something.
Trade is the right.
It's a better
it's
term.
100% the right term.
And it ebbs and flows. It's been around for 10,000 years, my God.
Right.
It's not, we're in an worldwide economic change, and so wine takes its lumps, but it's not going to change what that glass of wine is. When the guy said the other day, his name was Todd Mastro, said, well, I want people to feel that light that I felt, and that's the course I'm taking. Mm-hmm. And when I was in Bordeaux last month, 2 months ago, and I had a conversation with Chateau Bailly, Veronique Sanders, brilliant. You have to listen to it. I said, what is your philosophy? She goes, we're going to stay the course. Mm-hmm. This has been around for too long to start worrying about innovations and things going on in the industry, cans and Tetra Paks and all the things that go around these cyclical part of our business.
Trends.
Right, the trends and the consumer trends.
Yes, hula hoops.
But this stuff that's in this bottle right now has never changed. It's the same stuff.
Yep.
Right?
As I like to say, we're doing the good Lord's work.
Yes,
right?
That's right.
I mean, water into wine, it wasn't anything else, man.
That's exactly right. One day during church service, in fact, my son-in-law, my current son-in-law in New York, it was his father who was preaching to us in our hometown in Arcadia. And he talked about the water of the wine at the wedding.
We talked about that on the last show.
I think so. And I calculated there were 3,500 people.
Yeah. What a party. And his mom made him do it. That's always my favorite. You got to do something. Right.
But so I watched this stuff. I watched this noise, and I'm starting to get mad. And I'm so happy you started your podcast because I am now writing articles. I've got about 5 in the hopper right now that I have to complete that are going after this concept that we have to be innovative and we have to make different changes. And I think since I talked to you last, I had a conversation with the Cornell professor whose job it is to find a coating for the can that'll last more than 9 months, which is gross for wine.
Well,
right?
let's talk about, like, this is, for example, like, one of the things I think I love about wine is that the liquid in there used to be a grape, the glass used to be sand, the cork used to be the bark of the tree. There is something
that's beautiful.
It's true, right? And there is something so harmonious about that, right? It's when you eat Italian food, what we're talking about is terroir, the sense of place at a very deep level. And when you think of all of the different things that go into a bottle, even the packaging of them, I always go back to harmony, the sustainability, the beauty of everything about this can be recycled. I love that. The fact that when you are eating foods from a region and you drink a wine from that region, there is a harmony, right? I raise cattle. If I drink if I drink a Syrah grown on the same property as the cow who was raised on the property, there is something so... I go to analog because that's the best way I can describe it. There is something that the things inside of me know that this is the correct... that these things go together. It's the way that if somebody plays, chords on a piano that are meant to be played one after another, after another, after another, in a way with heart and soul and passion, you feel something inside. I've listened to pieces of music or gone to shows, and I don't like music that doesn't make me feel anything.
Right.
I like punk music. I like hip hop music. I like country music. I like music that when I start listening to it, something inside me starts rattling around emotion. And that to me is always art, right? When all these other wine companies you're talking about, they're not making art.
No.
What's the point?
You're right. They're making a beverage. And
they're trying to make a profit.
I think that the point. Did I say something? I think.
Don't worry, I'm spitting a lot. So
there's something very real about, and I call it now the honest glass of wine, which is intended as you
done
to reflect some time and place.
Yeah,
and it's kind of interesting to me that everybody will say, "I don't drink Chardonnay, I don't drink Cabernet, I don't drink Syrah, my wife doesn't drink." But when you have the right one, when you have one that's made with intent to reflect not only the terroir of that day and that month of the year, but the winemaker's terroir, you feel it. Everybody feels it.
Everybody feels it.
It doesn't matter. But you drink a glass of 19 Crimes or something else, or Martha Stewart Chardonnay, you don't feel it anymore because it's been doctored up. But when you feel that, almost 100% of people agree, this is a really good wine.
Why did people love Dylan? Dylan sang terribly. Was not a great guitar player. Like Johnny Cash, not a great singer, not a great guitar player. But there's a certain... we resonate with honesty, right? If I hand you $100 bill and you pick it, you go, "Oh, thank you," and put it in your pocket, right? If I hand you one that's counterfeit and one that's real, as soon as you put them both in your hands, you'll go like this and you go, "That's fake."
Yeah, right.
You know, I think we as people have a desperate need for community, connection, quality, and commitment, right?
Don't you wonder how if Bob Dylan or Crosby, Stills, and Nash, if they were on American Idol, if they'd even get past the second round?
Well,
I always think that. Like Johnny Cash, like you would have said, "What?"
No, right. No, why would you? But that again goes to that's manufactured, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Sometimes you find those people, and those people have to break through on those shows, and you're like, "That's a true talent." And we all know it when it happens.
When it happens, right?
Or that, like even that kid who came out of nowhere that wrote that Richmond, north of Richmond song, and kind of blew up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
That guy recorded it on his phone, singing it, and all of a sudden you're like, that was a great song, and it was from the heart. Wow, this is amazing, you know?
So you mentioned earlier, I know we talked about this last show, but I want to touch on it for the listeners. You said just earlier, this is by accident, or this was from coming out of failures, that this you've produced this, not only, and what comes from failures, right? It's an education, it becomes a philosophy. When you fail, you learn something. And so I think you were in fruit.
Yeah. So, originally, I could go all the way back. We have behind this, we have pictures of all my family. And if you look at that top left photo, that's my grandpa behind the horse's ears and my great uncle John driving the team.
Wow. And
my great grandfather died when my grandpa was young. And my grandfather, because, he looked up to his dad and his older brother who turned onto the family farm. He always thought farming was a noble profession.
Yes.
He made his way from Iowa to California. My dad grew up riding shotgun in my grandpa's truck, as my grandpa was a dairy supply salesman in Cerritos, Bellflower, Artesia, 91-605 5 freeway.
I love that.
That's where I grew up.
I just love that.
It's true. And so when they would drive around, my dad, the romance of watching his dad pull up on a foggy Saturday morning to sell a dairyman some supplies. Yeah. And the guy would come walking out with a cup of coffee and, hey, you're kind of shooting it with my grandpa, and my dad's just sitting there watching and hearing him talk. And my grandpa get in the truck, they go to the next place, and my grandpa goes, "Look at this place. Look at these. Look how many cows he has. Look, he has to get up every morning and do this and da-da-da." And even when I was a kid, my grandfather said, "As goes the farmer, goes the American." And it was just always baked in. And my father at one point said, I'm going for it. And my grandpa had a dream to grow something from the ground and raise cattle. My dad made it a reality and came up here, bought a real chunk of horrible piece of property up here that was 10,000 Fuji apple trees, and was farming it, full year. We had a neighbor, part of an upstart company called Whole Foods, and,
yeah, right.
And he said, "I'll buy all your apples." And the old man's like, "This is great. This is easy." Went to deliver them, got the fruit buyer came out, picked up 2 apples and rejected the whole lot. And like right there, driving down, think about it.
Wow.
High as you could get. We sold it all. This is great. Oh my gosh, we did all this work. We're going to get paid finally. This,
back to Norma Ray almost.
And then getting them rejected, bringing them back, pushing them on the ground, watch cows eat them. A lot of crying and throwing up because the dream went from the highest high to the lowest low.
Yeah.
And within, 24 hours, my mom, who's the pragmatist of all of it, because the truth is no rational person plants a vineyard. My mom goes, you can only make so many apple pies, you can make so many apple crisps, you can make only so much apple stuff. Why don't you tear it out and plant grapes? Because it seems like people are going to want those.
Wow.
And went to a couple wineries around town and said, hey, if we plant grapes, will you buy them from us? And asked a lot of questions and got, basically hit rock bottom. And so the humility was there of asking a lot of people, like Wes Hagen, great guy. You should definitely have him. He's written more AVAs, I think, single-handedly.
Oh, yeah.
Than anyone. Now he works with Ontiveros. But, what should we plant here? What should we plant here? Because we're standing on the shoulders of, truthfully, Brooks Firestone came out here 50 years ago and planted Pinot next to Cab next to this, like buckshotted, right? And then everybody started going to school on what grew well and where and what area should have this and what area should have that. So in 1999, we tore it all out, got a couple contracts from a few wineries, and we planted grapes and farmed them ourselves. And to this day, I'm very proud to say, like, our goal is always to grow something from the ground and raise cattle. I mean, that's the mantra.
But it's amazing how your back, like philosophically, your back's against the wall.
Oh, yeah.
You went down, and then from the ashes come this very passionate thing you're doing. I mean, this is beyond now. I've got a vocation. I've got a quest to do this and do it for the next generation, the generation after that.
You have the next step of this story will triple that down. So we started growing grapes and we're selling to other people. We saw them do well with our fruit because we were putting in we didn't know how everybody else was farming them. And we would just keep going and keep going and keep going until we didn't know. It's kind of like we don't know how fast everybody else is running.
Right.
And they were paying people to farm for them, and we didn't know that was a thing. And so we just kept pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. And then we bought another vineyard, we bought it from the Firestone family. And because we were farming it, they were happy to sell it to us. And we tore that whole place out and replanted it. And we didn't know that no one made any money selling fruit, right? And so, but we made a run at it.
Had you known.
Right. But we were doing it, right? And I had a couple coffee shops here. The building you're in was a day spa that my wife had. And I got pushed up against the wall myself, and I said, we're not making it. I mean, 2008 happened, and when gas was $5
recession,
in 2008, and every time the price went up 25 cents on a gallon of gas, a few less people bought a cup of coffee. And I came home that night, and I go, babe, I'm not going to make it. I think I made a terrible mistake. I mean, the whole reason we moved here was to raise our kids here, full stop. And she goes, I think you should do the wine thing the full time. And because I was selling literally that bottle right there with the little golden windmill. I was selling that off the back of my truck, and I made every house payment selling cases of wine. Didn't miss one.
Free delivery.
Oh, yeah. I'd do anything. And the beauty of that was it pushed me into doing this full time, opening this place, doing some crazy stuff like having, chairs out front and wine and cupcakes, and because I don't know how to run a winery.
No.
and got through
Who
it.
does?
No one does. And like the whole goal of this is to feed kids. I mean, it really is.
Right.
And that's why all of our wines have pictures of people on them that I love, because I figure if I get to do it 1 year, I might as well do it that way. And
all the wines have a picture of somebody in the family.
Yeah. And they tell, and that bottle tells the story, or the wine that's in the label on that bottle will tell the story of the wine that's in that bottle. Mm-hmm. So like I'm looking at a picture of my mom and dad on that one bottle, their marriage. Mm-hmm. That's a Syrah and a Cab. That's a blend. And that's one Syrah from one vineyard, one Cab from the other. So if I look at my mom and dad on there, they came from two different histories, two different backgrounds. That's a marriage. And when those two grapes come in together, that's a merit. I can't separate them.
And you can only do that in the Central Coast, blend Syrah and Cabernet.
Yeah, and they grow within 2 miles because this place can grow literally everything within 30 miles.
I want to go back just a second to your wife telling you, I think you should go full-time in wine.
Yeah.
Sounds like the kind of comment that had been festering in her a little bit, that she'd watched you go through the struggle, watched you figure out where to land. And somehow, when you brought it up that this was the end of the line, she goes, basically in her back of her mind, I've been thinking about this. It's time to go full time.
The truth of the matter is, every Saarloos man is a bit of a maniac, and the saving grace of every one of us is our partnership with our wife, because my wife and I are not. It's not husband and wife. It's partners that are romantically involved. Mm-hmm. And my mom and dad are like that, where my dad, I guess both my mom and my wife would say, we didn't marry idiots, right? This is just a failure. This is a new opportunity to succeed.
Do you think that was planned? We talked about God's hand on all this stuff, and you have this moment. And this is a serious moment right here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
When you walk in and say, "I don't think we're going to make it."
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what that feels like.
Yeah.
Well, the closest. It's actually kind of interesting. I was at corporate America for many years, and I hated it.
Me too.
I always wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Yep.
And then when my wife got pregnant and my little company that I was running, the software company, was not doing well. My partners and I weren't getting along. I went back to Xerox and I interviewed, and I remember why I hated it. Mm-hmm. But the one that slapped me in the face was the woman I interviewed with. She goes, "Are you nuts?" She goes, "You have an opportunity to stay out of this place when your father's got his business that he wants to sell you. Mm-hmm. You must be nuts." And so I felt, wow, this was a huge risk on my part to take on something like I had never done. And same with you. You walk in, you said, we're done with this. And your wife's like, no, I think you're going to do this now. And I wonder how that changed your relationship with her.
It is, a few different ways it changed the relationship. The word I would use for everything I've described up to this point is providential. Mm-hmm. Like, I cannot see the path further than, I would say God can. My job is to walk it. And my wife and I had a conversation kind of about this last night, where it's like my job is to walk it as admirably and as in the best possible way that I can, to become the best possible person I can, in every way, shape, or form. Like that person who sat across from you. She saw that if you went back there, yes, it would be safe, but it would be limited.
Right.
And while it's scary out here in the wilderness, it is limitless. And with my wife, with my mother, with my brother's wife, with my brother, really every Saarloos I know, the fact that I would give a get out of jail free card to my wife, and she goes, "Are you kidding?" No. And at my worst, or at my father's worst, or at our lowest point, to look across the table at someone that's not only saying, "You're right, what have you done?"
Yeah, right.
And push you further down into the hole, to look at someone that says, "I know how much better than you are. Right now, you don't feel confident in yourself, but I didn't marry an idiot.
Yeah.
I'm not a dumb." And like,
I'm not an idiot. I didn't marry an idiot.
That's exactly right. You need to get up off the mat. Like, it's someone in your corner that's pounding on the mat, yelling at you, "Get up." And like, I'll get choked up even just thinking about it. But it's like, there is not one thing in my life that I wouldn't do for a person who, at my lowest, still saw the best of me. I would chew through a solid concrete wall for that woman. There's nothing I could do to
You just reminded me of
lose that trust,
and I brought it up last night at dinner.
Yeah.
Mark 10 something. take heart, get up,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
He's calling.
Yes. Yes.
Like, get your ass out of the snow, get back on that set of skis or snowboard or skateboard.
Go.
And go, because we know better than this.
The verse, I didn't mean to just get so biblical, but like here am I, send me.
Right.
That has guided me so many times in my life where, even the line before that is, it's like, well, you got to kiss the coal. And kissing the coals is you have to do the very hard thing before you get to do the thing you are meant to do.
Did we pick an industry that approach to life is just a little bit tougher and a little bit, the headwinds are a little stronger? The headwinds of 20th century marketing, 21st century marketing, that's no longer a product from the heart always, is you trying to make it, but it's also a product of corporate manipulation. And so the headwinds to stay the course, let's put it that way, just become that much harder.
Yes to all of it. However, I envy nobody.
That's a great position.
Is there happiness? Is there easier ways to happiness? Absolutely. But in wine in particular, happiness, I'll use an example. I used to ride a bike down to go to Blockbuster Video, and I'd find a video, and I'd be like, this is it. Oh, my gosh, this is amazing. I rode my bike there. I called my friends. They all came over. We piled on the couch, this, that, or the other. Netflix is, we're just going to pump it into your house.
Half the people that listen to this don't even know what you're talking about.
I know, right? But Netflix is, oh, that's what you want. We'll just pump it into your house. You don't have to get up.
Right.
And what they did was, if we told them what we wanted Netflix, right?
Right.
We wanted every song ever streamed to our phone. If we told them what we want, that's what corporate America gives us. But what we didn't realize is the exchange for happiness was the loss of satisfaction. And I think so much of our life is we have traded happiness for satisfaction. Mm-hmm. And we now feel empty because the satisfaction of doing a very difficult thing to the best of your possible ability, to struggle, to strive, to lose weight by getting up in the morning and going for a run or lifting or changing your diet. None of that's fun. None of that makes you happy. But the feeling of satisfaction you get by doing those things is something that builds upon itself. You feel satisfied in this, I want more of that. Satisfaction is a drug that the more you do it, the more you're willing, like, nope, it comes at the end, but I'm willing to get out here and do it today to get to that point. If everybody in this world was in a constant, relentless pursuit of satisfaction over happiness, get out of the way.
Yeah, right.
And to a certain extent, I think that the part of wine, like every person in wine that you're talking to that's not corporate, right? It is a relentless pursuit that has audacity and tenacity that leads to victory. And I can't tell you how many times I've cried just at the bottling line.
Yeah.
Seeing it go in, seeing the label that goes on it, knowing what it took to get from here to there, knowing that I put somebody on it I love, that it's going to go out into the world. Somebody's going to walk through these doors. They're going to taste it and say, I love it. This is my song. I want to dance to it. I'm going to go home. They give me some money, and I get to do it again next year.
That's amazing.
Think of all the billionaires, the millionaires, the people that have done tremendous things in their life. What do they want to do? They want to get into this game with me.
That's right.
They want to get into a street fight with me.
Yeah.
And they don't know what it takes, but they're trying to buy their name on a label at the end. They're not earning I grew it, I picked it, we made it, I designed the label for it, I wrote all the stupid Instagram posts for it, I wrote all of the things, I'm doing a podcast for it, I sweep up in the morning before anybody gets here for it. They just want to hold something with their name on it. They want to get to the Netflix part of it. But
Because
there is such a beauty in earning it.
that's
So I envy no one.
That's which is a great position to be in, and I agree with that completely. Because I'll tell you one analogy. Go to Monaco during the Grand Prix and look at the boats. There's always somebody with a bigger boat. There's nothing you can do about that. But when the inspiration I got from the conversation I had with this winemaker also comes from his boss, Christian Mouex, who's probably one of the grandest French winery owners and producers of wine.
And how old is that producer?
Christian Mouex?
Yeah. How long have they been around?
Oh, probably 100 years.
Great.
Yeah.
So I got 75 years to catch up.
So, but here's what's interesting, because that's exactly what you're saying. And I started to write this article, and it's saying, success at a project is fulfilling, and you finish the project, but then the headwinds of the next project bog you down, and you have to go to the next project. But the inspiration when you get up in the morning is a 40,000-foot level look at what's going on in your life. And making wine is this annual satisfaction that you get by doing this. And so I want to get up and have that inspiration like this winemaker does. And he said to me, he goes, every day. Now, this guy, Christian Mouex, owns tons of stuff, right? I mean, some of the greatest brands out of France, and then now Dominus and Napa. He goes, I talk to him every day. And he tells me what I think this is going on in the vineyard, what's going on with this barrel, what's going to happen here. And I have to fax him. We don't even have email. I fax him stuff. And he writes on the fax and sends it back. But he's so passionately involved with producing, and he uses the word perfect. And let's define that for a second. Because I always ask this question: what is the end goal? We study the tap roots at 30 meters or 20 meters, and we figure out that the nitro, exchange of micronutrients is here and there. And what's the end game to that? And so he goes, well, I was told to make the perfect wine, and there's no definition for perfect wine except for that day, for that month, for Saarloos and Sons, and what they're trying to produce that day. That's the perfect wine.
Yes.
It's not some end game where I'm trying to produce a wine that I can sell for $5,000 a bottle like DRC or something. It's to produce the best I can from that moment.
It's getting to do it next year.
Yeah.
Every year is going to be different. Like I'll go to our wines. Like we don't manipulate. It is what it is. It is what it is.
So nothing, just a little sulfite.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, if something's in real, calamity, there's one thing, but usually everything kind of pulls its way out of it.
Yeah.
But we're not blending to taste.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. We're not like a lot of wineries who I'll say it a little bit differently. I don't sell to buyers. I know in your life, your past life, people would come in and you were a buyer, right? Because you would take their song or their story and push it on. And when they sold it to you, they would sell 5,000 cases of whatever at the right price point, bing, bang, boom. And they had to sell it to one person. And a lot of wineries will blend to taste, right? They will make a wine for that buyer.
That's right.
And for me, my buyer is every single person who walks across the threshold of our front door. That's it. So we are not trying to fit what's in on the radio, if you will. Our job is to just write, like you're saying, to make the perfect wine. Our job is to grow the best possible grape we can, not screw it up in the winery, and tell the story of that year, that place, that one time, that moment, put it in a bottle so somebody can go home and drink it with someone they love at a later date.
So the Wine of the Month Club sold March 2023.
Congratulations.
Started May 1972.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Along the way, of course, we saw all the cycles.
Sure.
Not only in wine, which is our passion, but marketing, which is, I don't even want to talk about marketing today. But what got discouraging the last, let's say, 10 years is the proliferation of these, for the listeners, I'm going to tell you 50 cent a liter wines coming from Europe, which is in a 20,000 gallon vinyl bladder that comes to America. But the equivalent of 50 cents a liter is $4.50 worth of wine inside the bottles of a case. When you and I know, it would cost you, $25 a gallon, $60 a case minimum, just to buy something that's any good, right?
Yep.
And so the idea of Wine of the Month Club was to really find these stories now that you say it that way, it wasn't about finding the cheapest wine I could find. It was finding the stories, and there were lots of stories to sell through, I'm going to say 2002 to 2007. Okay. Somewhere in that range, the profitability of wine became aware to a lot of venture people, a lot of capital, a lot of private label brands, and now...
The culture vultures.
Yeah, the culture. I like that. So as a consumer, you could be at a store, buy some Sauvignon Blanc, and go to the next store and buy the same Sauvignon Blanc under a different brand.
Yep.
Or join a club, which is what most clubs do.
Yep.
So we were not distressed when we sold the company that we had to get out, we wanted to get out, because I was tired. I was tired of sourcing.
You've earned it.
What the real point of the business was to bring to the table the best value you could find that had a story behind it. Mm-hmm. So,
what do you think? Here's a funny way to put it. So, and if you don't mind me asking this, I have no idea what I'm doing. I seriously,
we never do.
We never do. But you heard the beginning of our story. You see where we're at now. You've seen the trends come and go. I'm asking this as a mentorship aspect, right? What should I change? What am I not doing right? What could I do better? And I'm asking that because you've heard why we do what we do, how we do what we do, all of it.
Yeah.
Am I on the right track?
Well, you do it. Certainly, what I see here. Here's my latest bent, and I've gotten a ton of support from this concept, and you're already doing parts of it. We all know wine's experiential. Mm-hmm. It requires that experience, and you're telling your story already. I'm going to tell you a story about Lee Iacocca's daughter right now. But the experiential part of wine is what you're doing right here in this tasting room. And the reason is, one of your girls mentioned earlier that they got a couple club members the other day. Was it yesterday?
Oh, yeah. It's great.
Okay. What happens to that person when they go home and they get that shipment? Every shipment they get, they will open that up and say, God, do you remember that day we were up in Saarloos? And every time, even if the kids are pulling on their shirt tails that evening, when they open that bottle of wine, it takes them back in time. And it's going to be why your longevity of your members outlives any of these nondescript clubs.
Absolutely.
And the Wine of the Month Club was like that when we started, because it was this concept by this immigrant from Egypt who was a wine shop owner, and he produced this idea, and people still reflected on that. And by the way, when I was selling for maybe, my last year in 2007 that we did shows, I did 75 shows in a year. And that was a handshake at a booth, sign up for the club and check it out. So I think you're on the right track.
Nobody wants to work this hard.
No, I know.
Yeah, I like it.
Well,
I get it.
Look, my parents, when they started this concept, put a booth up at the LA County Fair the first time, and they built it 3 foot off the back wall so they could put a cot there, so they could sleep in the cot and take breaks, because it's an 8 to 12 hour day depending on what day it is. But here's an interesting story. We had dinner the other night with Lee Iacocca's daughter, Leah, and she's got a rosé from Tuscany. And they didn't understand the business, honestly. And so they brought 10,000 or 12,000 bottles of rosé in the first time around. And guess how many bottles are left in the United States? And it's a 2021.
Yeah.
So she asked a similar question you asked. I was able to sell it for her. But I said, where's the story? I mean, your dad invented the Mustang, and he ran Chrysler. He was friends with Kirk Kerkorian. I mean, I remember going to the MGM Grand, and there was a Chrysler Concorde. If you pull the slot machine in, you want a Chrysler Concorde. I said, where's the story about your dad? Otherwise, you're just in the fight of the rosé business. You're trying to grab some market share, which is going to be minuscule against all these huge companies. Like Dow, you're not going to get Dow's shelf space. But if you tell the story about your father and his love of Tuscany wines and your estate in Tuscany where you grow these grapes, at least you have a fighting chance. At least somebody says, wow, what a cool story.
So that goes back to, I think, what we were talking about a little earlier, is I see that the market is, people are voting with their money. And if we don't have a relationship, right? The people that come through here, we have people that spread people's ashes in our vineyard.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we, like, our club isn't called a club, it's called our family, because it is what it is. And we have people that have been in since day one, right? That's
huge.
Well, our goal is to build longer tables, not taller fences.
Yeah, that's
and
huge.
when people come in, again, an industry, right? An industry doesn't know what to do with me. I'm not in an industry.
No, you're not.
Yeah, a craft does,
Yes.
but craft usually has to talk with a craft is playing a guitar, right? And songwriting is a craft, but those are not mutually exclusive. You could be the greatest songwriter in the world, you can be the greatest guitar player in the world, but if you do not know how to get out there and share it, if you're reclusive, if you if you don't step into the blazing spotlight and say, let's let it rip, and crush down all of the because I would always say that I am equal parts soul crushing anxiety and self-doubt. And in the Venn diagram on the other side of it is this like blatant, I wouldn't say narcissist is not the right word, but overwhelming self-confidence. And right where they cross over, like right that little edge, that's where I am. Because I know everything can fail. I know every single person could leave our club tomorrow if they wanted to. I know that everybody could stop walking through the front door and I'm done. But
No question.
I have to be a farmer that gets up at 4 a.m, that protects frost and sleeps out in a vineyard and grows something from nothing and fights for it all the way along. And then I have to be that same farmer that has exceptional customer service and brings you in and says, this is all the things and why we've done it in such a way that makes you go, I like your song. I want to sing it with you.
You're
Right on. My wife, the next part of her story going, I think you should do the wine thing, was it seems like it's everything you've ever been good at. And I went, really? And she goes, I don't know enough. All these people know all this stuff about everything. They know how to grow.
Yeah.
And she's like, you're already doing all the hardest parts.
Yep.
So fill it in. And again, going back to that, if you're getting into this just to hold a bottle with your name on it, give me a phone call. I'll sell you a barrel. I'll slap a label on it. Piece of cake. You're fine. But if you want to earn this, right, I will bury Wink. I will bury those companies.
Yep.
And that's
for sure.
It's one of my favorite things. They're
already
buried
did.
in the backyard.
They already did.
We did.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beautiful part of wine being around 10,000 years, because I think it's people like you and people like me that will bury anybody who comes in and thinks they're going to make a quick buck. It's too hard to do that.
Well, how many people do you think go to Napa and spend millions of dollars now and then the minimum they could sell a bottle of wine for is $150 to break even, and realize I didn't expect this part of the business. I wanted to have the lifestyle of a winery.
There we go.
And I'm going to live that lifestyle. And then we go, wait a minute, I'm kind of tired of losing money all the time.
Culture vulture,
Right?
Yeah.
There's
well, go to that real quick, right?
yes.
The one thing that I appreciate about everybody that's in wine, the one thing I absolutely love, I will say it to anybody, and I think we should say it here in a loud way, is the people who are in it and are surviving are most people who get into wine, they were successful at something else in their life and they want to get into it. Like just the story you were telling, right? Mm-hmm. And I always say, like, a great analogy was, someone said, it goes, I wanted to be a boxer.
I could have been a contender.
Right. I wanted to be a boxer until I met someone who had to be a boxer. Because the person who has to be a boxer will beat your brakes off.
That's right.
And the people
That's a really interesting analogy.
The people that are in this industry, that are surviving it, that do it every year, who love for the love of the game, for what we're doing, I have seen incredibly successful people get into this. And I go, welcome to the street fight.
Yeah.
Like I say with my cousins who have a tasting room 2 doors down, we will beat the brakes off you.
Yeah.
Because you do not want to work as hard as me. You just don't. You were successful at something else, and you think you're going to have that success here. This is the greatest equalizer on the planet, because it is farming that we give a chance at immortality that looks like it has this highfalutin, sophisticated, that's the package that is sold. But it's dirtbags like me who are out in the dirt.
That's it.
That it's like this. I won't quit. I'm too dumb.
Yeah.
So let's go. That's the fight.
Well, that's the interesting thought, because I always talk about the terroir of a wine, which most people would define it as the soil and the picking conditions and all that.
Oh, I think it's so much more.
But how could what you just told me, that story you just told me, the story about your uncle getting the Purple Heart and fighting in Normandy, and how can you tell me the story about your bottling this for the Reagan estate? Yeah. All those thought processes. Now, you can't taste it because it's a tannic acid or a fruit component, but the terroir is your history, bringing it to the table, and the lessons you've learned from your father and your great-grandfather and everybody before you show up in that bottle under your scenario.
Totally.
They won't show up in somebody that buys a chateau in Napa and hires the best winemaker they can find. It doesn't show up.
No.
That heart's felt.
That's those are studio musicians, right? There are great studio musicians, but you're not Dylan.
Right. Yeah.
Going into that even further, the one thing I think that I'm so proud of, or that I love the most of all of this, is that, raising my kids here is the goal. This is how we get to
Which is huge.
Huge.
Yeah.
And seeing what my daughter has become, it makes me know that I made the right decision. My son, the lessons he learns here, I see him carrying into his own life. And when we have conversations about, like, he plays water polo now, which is without a doubt the hardest sport I've ever seen.
I know.
I'm so
We're
proud.
watching the Olympics.
I love it.
The women
love
kicking
it.
each other.
Just beating each other in a medium that wants to kill you. But like, even in conversations like that, I go, I can just turn to him and say, what time do I get up? What do we do? Why do we do this? Mm-hmm. And the visual representation of what it takes to succeed. He has, at 15 and a half years old, right? Can't even drive yet. I have seen when he went from being a kid to being a young man, the transformation I've seen happen in him because of those life lessons that he saw from his grandfather to me, to him.
How old is he now?
15 and a half. There he is, right up there. He's the one.
Oh yeah, right.
With the moppy head. Watching him transform into something amazing. Because, like I've said to both of my kids, I don't care if you do this or not. If this dies with me, I have succeeded. Because you have to figure out 4 things in your life. You have to figure out what you love, what you're good at, what the world is willing to pay you for, and what the world needs. If you figure out those 4 things and it's not wine and it's something else, that is your purpose. That is your mode. That is what you are put on this planet to do. That is the providence of what you're supposed to get up and do for the rest of your life. That is how you're going to impact.
One of the most common stories that I get from European winemakers, I didn't want to do this. I didn't set out to do this. I went to business school. I was going to be a doctor. I was going to be a lawyer. I actually practiced law, and I was called back. Mm-hmm. And there's something interesting, though, and I'm going to go back to the marketing just for a second, because your son's 15 and a half.
I ask his, by the way, his opinion on marketing all the time.
This is the irony of our business, and I didn't have your side entirely, though I did own a vineyard in Paso for a little bit. But
how was that?
It's right. It's why I live in L.A. and ran a marketing company. But when I stopped in Napa, the month before COVID started, the actual lockdown, but COVID was around, mm-hmm. The question to me by one of the newspaper beat writers on the wine trade was, what are we going to do with these wineries that don't have a chat bar? Like, in other words, what these poor wineries are going to go out of business because they don't have the marketing horsepower, the website, or the club, the mailing list to do the business. I said, I don't know, because they're farmers, and we talked about that. Yeah. And so you balance. This is a balancing act. You talked about your Venn diagram for your personality. It's also mm-hmm. for an industry that relies on marketing mm-hmm. and getting the story out. Yep. And that part is a question mark all the time.
It's not a question mark.
And so, but your son. This is an important thing that your son brings to the table that you should be tapping, which you said you are, and that is, they look at life differently with their baseline being Instagram, Facebook, and all the other social networks, and the next one that comes out whenever it does, how to find people that are going to be your story. Because we don't really, I mean, I get it, and I did a lot of it. I sent 33 million emails my last year, but they have
nobody wants to look at their email.
Yeah, that's so there. And I didn't want to learn.
Yeah,
we learned a lot. I mean, I did all that stuff, but they have a fresh viewpoint of that baseline starting forward of how to market or the messaging they receive every day, what their friends receive every day, the conversations they have with their friends about what they saw is very, very helpful to a company like yours or a family like yours in getting the story told. Because without the story, you're just slugging it out and you have the story.
Sure.
And that's, so I know what I was going to say. Sorry.
No. Well, just to speak on that for a minute, it's like, TikTok comes out and I go, should I be on TikTok? To my son, he goes, let me think. And we were driving, he goes, no. I said, why shouldn't I be on TikTok? He goes, TikTok isn't what you do. I said, what do you mean by that? He goes, TikTok. He goes, remember how you used to flip channels? I said, yeah. He goes, that's all TikTok is. And I go, but shouldn't we just be there kind of a thing so people can see us? He goes, yeah, but unless you're going to do some stupid stuff. And I don't think what we do is stupid. And I went,
okay. That's from the mouths of babes, right?
Mouths of babes. He reads everything I rate. My Instagram is me writing a diary so my kids can read it, and also so that everybody who follows us can read it. I rarely talk about wine. I always talk about just us as a family. Wine is what we do. Like people go, you need to write a book. I said, the book is free. Here it is. Please buy wine. That is without a doubt. Again, corporations or corporate wine is not fighting the same fight.
No.
Right. And what they are doing, like the fact that there are wineries out there that can lose money year after year after year. I can't do that.
You can't do that.
I have to, when you buy a bottle of wine from Saarloos and Sons, it does not go into a ledger and it does not go into peanuts on the private jet. It pays for a banner at a water polo pool. It goes to supporting restaurants that people have in this valley. I rarely spend money out of this valley. Rarely. It stays in my community. And that's the American dream, right? The American dream is to be part of a community that you believe in, that you would fight for, that you want to make better, that you appreciate, that you sweep the streets on. I mean, we have a dump trailer over there. We take out the trash for the whole town because I love this place.
Yeah.
And the more I do that, hopefully somebody sees it and goes, I want to do my part. And another person says, I want to do my part. Because any club you've ever been a part of, any group you've ever been a part of, someone needs to be the person that motivates everybody to be better. And my goal, like I said, even with my conversation with my wife last night, because, it's been a rough year and I've been down in the dumps more than I would like to be. And the goal that she articulated so well was like, but don't you want to be the best possible version of yourself as you can be? And why are you limiting yourself? And so it's like, yeah, that lit a huge fire under my ass. And I woke up.
They're good at that. Yeah.
Oh, good at that. Get up and continue. The work must continue. And so when we go into marketing, if you have to lie, I'm part of my marketing during harvest, I go live on Instagram, sitting in a tractor at 3 a.m. Yeah. You've seen it, right? And part of you seeing that, somebody said to me, why do you do that? Because I'll just sit there and talk, because I'm driving the tractor that day, and I'm talking, hey, who's up, and blah, 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 blah. And they go, why do you do that? And I said, simple. Nobody else can.
Yeah.
Nobody else is out there.
Yeah, the president of Treasury is not doing that.
Exactly. And if you're going to vote for someone with your dollars, vote for me. Like a bottle a night is all we ask.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's always going to be the goal. So when you get into marketing is usually convincing. And we don't convince. No, we tell.
Marketing, people think that they get intimidated. My staff used to get intimidated when I would talk about salesmanship. And the salesmanship is just matching the product you have and the story you have to the needs of the consumer or create a need in them. But it's not convincing them to buy something like on Instagram. But I just thought of something, this vision. There's two things we're already past an hour, and I do have
keep going.
Deadline, but it's interesting because your son's TikTok analogy, which is true, and you only have so much time, energy, and money to put into the things you're doing, and so you have to be as efficient as you can. And TikTok's not an efficient place for that, unless you want to, like he said, you're going to screw around, have some fun, grab somebody's time for 30 seconds, and move on to the next subject. I did a bunch of TikTok stuff early on about corkscrews and corks, and they're kind of funny, but they didn't make any business out of it.
Yeah,
it was just
did they move the needle?
But for you, the objective is that when they're sitting around the dinner table, like this table here.
Yeah. Do you see how it's worn out here?
Yes.
This is where we sit.
And they open a bottle of Saarloos and Sons, a friend, a club member. Somebody stopped at the winery driving through Los Olivos, stopped at Bob's Bakery, got some...
Someone who needed to use the only public bathroom in town.
Yeah, there you go, doing your part.
Yep.
And they saw you on the tractor at 3 a.m. They heard the story of your uncle who owned the Purple Heart, or they saw it on the wall. That's the story that they got to tell in this thing. And one of the things that I've realized about wine is everybody, and this will be off camera conversation next time, but
we could do it on camera. I'm in.
Well, the pundits and this young generations that come to this industry that think they're going to innovate and change everything don't understand the part of that conversation around the dinner table. And I'm saying this because they say the language of wine has to change and nobody understands what you're saying when there's cedar and there's oak in the wine. That nobody understands it, which is true because you don't taste enough. But that doesn't change that conversation at dinner time with people that know nothing about wine, with the same person that knows everything about wine. Those conversations exist and they're unintimidating because somebody says, I got this wine at Saarloos and Sons, the uncle wanted Purple Heart, and he's on the tractor at 3 a.m. He's making it, and they start talking like that.
Yep.
They're not talking about the nuances of the structure of the wine. That's not the conversation.
But that's not even the point.
It isn't the point.
Do you want to dance to this song or not?
Right. That's it.
That's it. I don't care what amp you used. I don't care what guitar or mic or any of that garbage stuff. That's for nerds, right?
Right.
When you talk about those pundits, is their house payment on the line?
Right.
No, they fired up an Instagram account and they got a following. They probably bought half of them, and they make themselves feel better by getting out there and then saying, this is what you should do. Like my favorite thing, somebody walks in here.
I hate that.
And they look at me and they go, you know what you should have done?
The word should kills me.
Should. Like, if someone goes, you know what you should have done? And I go, I think we're done.
Yeah.
And they go, what? I go, beat it. And they go, what? I go, I don't give a shit what you're going to say.
Because you should have.
Yeah, you should have done this, or you know what I like? And I go, I don't care. Because I don't.
They don't. No.
Because if you're walking in here, it's like, are you putting your house payment on the line? Are you putting your kids' food on the line? Are you doing this, that, or the other? And if the answer is no, then beat it. Because
you're telling your story. And advice is easy to give from the veil of cover. So that's,
if you're sitting in the cheap seats and saying what he should be doing on the field, you're not the man in the arena. You know what I mean?
I have a niece starting a salad dressing line. She's done an incredible job at 21 to what she's doing. And I deliberately and explicitly stay away from should. Because she doesn't want to hear it either.
No.
She's got her own ideas what she wants to do, what this is supposed to be.
Yes.
And so if she asked me a question about marketing or metrics and, the Google ads, I'll answer the question. But I'm not going to say you should be, because I don't know what you should be doing. I really don't.
If you did, you would be doing it.
Exactly. I really don't know the answer to your objective. How would I know that? How would I know what you want in life by owning this winery and taking the trash out for the community, that I would say you should be doing this?
But look at there's always a difference. Like, you think of any company. You could take a tech company, you could take a salad dressing company, you could take a clothing company, whatever it is, right? Someone started that company because they were passionate about what they were doing. And if you're successful enough, you have to hire people. And then eventually it gets to the point where, like right now, corporations are people or whatever they are, right? And that behemoth will move in its own battleship-like way. Does it have anything to do with the founding?
No.
Does it have anything to do with the original mission or the hard work or the effort or the founding of it? The answer is no.
No.
Like I know, you're out of the business, right?
Pretty much.
And then I'm going to stay away from that. But the part I mean by that is, think about any company where when the founder leaves, the soul is gone. Like I lost my dad 4 years ago. When the soul was gone, it wasn't my dad anymore.
Yeah, right. That's right. For sure.
It just wasn't. It was
everything.
It was something we left.
Yeah.
And I think the soul of certain things in this world are important. I think wine is a great example of it, because what we did out in the vineyard was we worked passionately to grow a grape. And then we go through this process of transformation where we turn it from grape juice into a wine. And then we take the skins, the seeds, all of that other stuff that was so important to us. And we dig out all of those skins and seeds and everything else, and we put it in a vat and we press it out. We press the final juice out of it. That goes to barrel, and all of that physical stuff that we work so hard on, we spread it in a field and we don't care about it. But the soul remains, right? When I think about a wine, I think of the soul of a place. Terroir, what you were saying it so beautifully, right? When people say like the definition of terroir, like how is this and where is the soil and what is this and what is that? But the truth of it is terroir is the soul. And you and I can't define a soul. I don't think anybody can define a soul. I can't describe this wine, just like I can't describe to people who are watching and listening why I love my wife so much that you fall in love with her. Everybody has to go out and experience those things for themselves. There will never be a digital equivalent of what we're doing right there.
Never. You
have to go out. You have to put it into a glass. You have to savor it. You have to enjoy it. And when people are out baking, what I always say are soulless wines. Soulless wines are killing wine.
Yes, I agree with that completely.
Because
I have a huge problem with that.
They're there as a beverage. They're there to confuse deliberately by calling the soulless thing that we're doing with passion and life and soul, they're calling it the same thing. And that confuses customers. That confuses people who want to go out there and find something with a soul. There's a big difference.
I think the truth prevails. That's why wine's still here.
Yes, absolutely.
It will prevail. I'm going to leave it at this slot because we're over an hour and 15. I have to get back. And we're going to do it again because we're going to... Actually, my wife's calling her cousin to tell her that we're bringing her up here after she finishes her cancer treatments because of the serenity of this neighborhood and coming to places like
Anytime.
This. But the thought I'm going to leave with is...
By the way, thank you for coming.
Oh, yeah. My pleasure.
From
it's the first thing I thought of.
Well,
I'm going to be anywhere near Ballard Canyon or Los Olivos. I got to see Keith.
But on a personal note, you have been in this industry and survived this industry for a very long time, and the people who are into this industry understand how difficult it is. But from someone that can see someone who's passionate about it, who cares about the soul of this thing, right?
That's what it is.
If you didn't care about the soul of this thing, why would you be doing this right now?
No, it's entirely. It's a lot of freaking work.
So I'm saying to you,
I appreciate that.
I see what you're doing, and I appreciate
that.
Thanks, man.
So I'm sure like you, but I thank my father every day for turning me on to it. I would have never thought while I was selling copiers, to corporate America that I would be in a trade where there's a message to tell and to tell everybody else.
You think anybody would talk like this about selling copiers?
No, no. I could tell you the first copy out time for a Xerox 3500, but
how many page per minute?
Anyway, good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Thanks for coming in. We'll do it again.
I love it.
I want Mom on the show next time.
Oh,
yeah. Do it?
She'd do. Mom likes to hide in the back.
Okay, but the two of you.
Oh, yeah, she'd be great.
All right.
Anytime.
Cheers.